Hello and welcome to the channel Crypto Speculation. My name is Kamil and today I have a special guest. We will talk mainly about the new book of possibilities of DeFi and speculatively about crypto projects. Rhian Lewis, developer, writer of Understanding Decentralized Finance and the Cryptocurrency Revolution. Thank you for accepting the invitation to share more specifically your messages in the book and also about crypto in general. Hey Rhian.
Hello, thank you so much for asking me on the podcast. I'm very happy to be here.
So before we start, Rhian, maybe introduce yourself to us listeners.
Yes, well, by trade, I am a software engineer. So my background is technical, and that is what I do for my job. But previously in my life, I was a journalist. And I have a degree in economics. So those three strands of my experience have all pulled together to turn into an interest in technical writing. And when I discovered Bitcoin back in 2013, I just became obsessed by the possibilities of Bitcoin and the whole crypto ecosystem. And I read as much as I could about the topic. And back then we had there was no Blockfolio, there were no real portfolio trackers. So a friend and I wrote a portfolio tracker, which we launched back in 2014. I also started a group in London for women in Bitcoin. Back in 2014. And since then, I've been involved in different parts of the crypto ecosystem. I work with a couple of venture capital companies advising their portfolio companies. And I have also worked in developer relations for a project called Boson Protocol. And I continue to write about the ecosystem. My first book, The Cryptocurrency Revolution, was published in 2020. And the new book, which you mentioned, Understanding Decentralized Finance, came about because of my obsession with DeFi.
Mm-hmm. You said the Cryptocurrency Revolution book was unknown to me, but when I read Understanding Decentralized Finance, then I understood what book will be the next in my hands. So in this first book, you have a focus on integration with central bank digital currencies and the future of crypto DeFi as the puzzle of finance. So part of revolution is maybe the generational change.
Yes, I think generational change is very important, and that's something that I do tackle in the new book. While myself am not part of the younger generation, I am definitely part of the older generation, being Generation X. But I see my younger colleagues in the Web3 space and the passion they bring and the knowledge they have. And in fact, my colleague at Outlier Ventures, Hanan Noor, who is very much Generation Z, I interviewed her for the book, and she talks a lot about this idea about younger people who are digital natives being able to understand crypto and DeFi in a way that many people from my generation simply don't.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a word of return, because I wouldn't not have found you so quickly if not the entry of a childhood and Twitter account. They published you a project that is supposed to make a revolution in terms of financing crypto and full secrecy and potential in the ecosystem like Cow or Quom. Is it a coincidence, or I will say this because I didn't know you before, so observing the actions of beginning of the Ryoshi vision, I don't believe these cases anymore, but maybe you know something more, something better. You will suggest the theory.
Well, this is such an interesting question. Before I start answering this, I should say that I have no contact with Ryoshi. However, I'm curious that the Childhood End account picked up on the book, because I've had previous contact with the core com a year ago. I was approached by a Twitter account which has since disappeared, telling me all about core and decentralized social graphs and so on. And we had a very interesting conversation via Twitter direct message, and it meant that I went away and I read about the project and the ecosystem. But I have never had more involvement other than that. So while I think the project is super interesting, I'm not in any way part of the community. I was obviously very happy to see Childhood Stream pick up on the book. And part of me really loves the mystery around Ryoshi and the narrative, the storytelling around this particular ecosystem really fascinates me. Mm-hmm. But I think, yes, it's a coincidence. Well, I think maybe nothing in life is a coincidence, but there is certainly not some undiscovered truth there about me and my links with the ecosystem.
But you know the date, 25 April? Why the date was there?
I don't know that. I really don't know that, because the interesting thing is that the book was published in different countries on different dates. So for the UK, it was actually published where I live. It was published on the 3rd of April. So I didn't actually know that it had a publication date of the 25th anywhere else. As you say, maybe nothing is a coincidence, but this decision was nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we will return to the topic of these projects also at the end interview. And it was interesting because token went up around 15%, maybe 25 April, and Elon Musk sent a picture of Earth with childhoods. Maybe did you see or no?
I did see. I mean, my whole life has been filled with strange coincidences, and this is definitely a strange coincidence. But there is because the publication dates, because I'm working with a publisher of business books, not somebody working in the crypto ecosystem, I think there is no intent behind the 25 April date, but I sure find it interesting.
Yeah. And last question, the TCIN book number, it's identical to the value of a certain transaction on the Etherscan that was hanging due to the gas settings in the Childhood End token. Is the same number TCN book?
Well, that absolutely blows my mind, because the book numbers are not, as far as I'm aware, something that can be chosen. They are sequential, and the publisher applied for these numbers a long time ago, because I saw the proofs of the book cover several months ago, and the ISBN, the TCN as we call it, was there then. But maybe there are greater forces working in the universe, who knows? But I certainly did not select this number. That was done automatically by my publisher. But I can't rule out something to do with the universe working in a mysterious way.
Okay, I will ask after also, because I was getting a lot of questions from community shortly. Okay, let's move on to the book, because it's amazing book for me. I learned a lot of DeFi and possibility if it. How long time it take you to write the book, and where did the inspiration come from? Maybe like the crash of DeFi system, like Luna, Celsius.
Yes. Okay. So, first of all, thank you for saying that you enjoyed the book. For me, the most important thing is that people can read it and can find it useful. It took me probably 6 months or so to write because bear in mind that I work during the day as a developer. So, so if I was sitting all day writing, it would have taken me probably quite a short time. But because I was writing after work and in the mornings and so on, it took longer than that. And it's interesting that you mention the whole series of collapses, first with Luna and then Celsius, because that actually caused me a lot of problems because I had started the book and already written a first draft before the Luna collapse. So then I had to go back and rewrite large amounts of it with the collapse providing the context for it, because I had commented in my first draft that I thought it was very interesting that the Luna Terra ecosystem was pulling in a lot of people and that there was so much liquidity in the system. And then while I was writing the book, we had this whole sequence of unfortunate events, which meant that I had to rewrite a lot of it. The inspiration for the book is simply that I believe that in the modern world, we are conditioned to believe that only the banking system of large centralized banks can provide an infrastructure for ordinary people and for institutions to trade. And we've become very conditioned to looking towards centralized financial institutions as the only alternative. Whereas I saw this parallel system emerging, and I found it very, very interesting. And in a way, the DeFi system as it is today still operates so much under the radar of a lot of people working in institutions. And I thought it was really interesting to highlight all the things that you can do with it, as well as all the considerable challenges that face it, because obviously in writing the book, I don't want to encourage people to speculatively invest money that they don't have. I think it's still a high risk sector, but a very, very interesting one. And I felt there was a gap in the market for a book that could explain the ideas in a non-technical way.
Mm-hmm. In the book, you bring up the subject of smart contracts on Ethereum, the leader in this matter. But high fee become problematic, and there is still a little bit left to the potential bull markets. And layer 1 networks have been created and will be created, so we are looking for this decentralization. Do you personally see Ethereum to still be the leader in 2-3 years, the number one?
That's such a difficult question. How to answer this? Ethereum has huge advantages because of network effects and the fact that everyone uses it. It's other than Bitcoin, obviously, it's the best known cryptocurrency. It's the biggest smart contract focused network. It has a lot of advantages. But as we all know, Ethereum on its own cannot handle anything near the volume that it needs to. So quite rightfully, we're looking at a whole range of different solutions, not just in the layer 1 itself, but, roll-ups and layer 2s and so on. And I think that the future for Ethereum is going to be a whole combination of different layer 2 and other technologies working with Ethereum. Whether this is enough to keep Ethereum as the leader, I don't know. It might be that Ethereum is really just an absolutely fantastic research project, providing like a laboratory for other blockchains that might come along in future, other networks that might come along in future. It's very, very difficult to see what lies ahead. But right now, I don't see another layer 1 really dominating Ethereum, but the situation could be entirely different in 18 months, 2 years. I know that there are lots of questions since the move to proof of stake, where the whole network is becoming more centralized, and that's obviously not a good thing. There's already a lot of centralization in Ethereum because of services like Infura and Alchemy and so on, but also the move to proof of stake means that a lot of the nodes are concentrated in the power of exchanges and so on. So I think there are questions over Ethereum's future decentralization, but right now I think it is way out ahead as the leader and the whole ecosystem surrounding it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we will go faster. Some questions I will cut. So, stablecoin, DeFi, becomes popular in the mainstream amongst others. The Bitcoin offer at Swiss, regulated Swiss financial company, offering cryptocurrency services to private clients and companies. Among other things, customers will be able to deposit Ethereum to mint the LUSD stablecoin using the liquidity protocol. So you mentioned the stablecoin several times in the book. And how important is this element in the crypto?
Okay, I will try not to talk so much for every question as well, because the problem is that the topic is so interesting that it's easy to talk for a long time. Stable coins are essential. As you say, in my book, I talk about them and point out that MakerDAO really, with the DAI stablecoin, is the foundation of it's what enabled the birth of DeFi, really. Stablecoins are essential. There are, as you mentioned, various centralized stablecoins now, such as the Swiss example that you mentioned. I don't think it has to be a choice of either centralized or decentralized. With the banks that offer stable coins, it is understandable that they are opting for a centralized solution, which can then interface with decentralized finance, or be used for cross-border settlements and so on. The main thing is that the decentralized stable coins remain available as well, so that people have a choice between decentralized or centralized stable coins, and they're not pushed only into the centralized stable coins.
Mm-hmm. Do you know about the dinero matter in the stablecoin? Did you hear about this?
Yes. Now that's relatively new, I believe. I know it's an over collateralized stable coin. Because it's so new, I don't really have an opinion on it yet. All I will say is that with any collateralized stablecoin, it is important that there is adequate proof, ideally on chain, of where that collateral is. But I haven't had a chance to experiment myself with Dinero yet, so I will not give a recommendation one way or the other.
I ask because of Dinero matter, because the token Childhood's End, the similar contract is similar speculatively to the Dinero matter. But do you think you have experience on DeFi that it's possible to use like mint donation in the multi-chain to mint stablecoin, maybe like Luna stablecoin, the algorithmic was misused. It was bad examples. But do you think the better version like this?
I think the question over collateralized and algorithmic is a very interesting one. I think algorithmic stablecoins have got a bad reputation, but it is entirely possible that the implementation may be better in future. So, as with any technology where we're early, it is important to be very cautious. But I would not rule out a successful algorithmic stablecoin in future.
Like Luna, yeah?
Well, when you say like Luna, with a much better thought out implementation, because one of the problems with Luna is that it worked in a rising market, but there is a lot of questions around an ecosystem where the data is quite small because it hasn't been around for very long. So it's very difficult to implement solutions that will work for any type of market. But as we gain more information and more research is done, maybe things will change.
Okay, you give examples of various DeFi projects like Avi, Compound, Synthetic, Open, Rhian Finance, or NFT, uniquely SudoSwap there in the book. So does your experience tell you that this is just the beginning of their potential development?
Absolutely. I think it's something of a cliche in crypto that we say we are early, but we really are early. I think in terms of integration with existing technologies, we are only really starting to see the tiny beginnings of this system. I see it as something that in future we will not even think of as separate or remarkable. It will all be part. The potential is very huge. In our ecosystem, we often say we are early, but we really are very early. And the future for both DeFi and NFTs used in different ways will be a system that interfaces with the existing legacy systems, not one that is separate or parallel in some way.
Yeah, interesting. So, not financial advice, but should we invest those projects? It's better than to go to the casino, maybe, like Avi Compounds.
Right. This is a very difficult question because for the last 10 years, people have been asking me for investment advice. And I never suggest to people that they buy cryptos or they use DeFi or whatever. But what I try to encourage people to do is the phrase "do your own research" is very, very important. And that is what I hope I contribute to with the book, because while I think that there are big opportunities here, there are also big opportunities to lose money. So the way things are at the moment, people should not necessarily expect to engage with DeFi and become rich, but they should do all their own research first, and hopefully I contribute a little to that.
You also write about NFT. No one should underestimate the power of exclusivity in driving demand, both in general and together with DeFi. So many people don't understand that this is more than just a token. There are three areas where NFT can be used to connect to DeFi as a collateral for token gating and liquidity, yes?
Yes, correct. There may well be many more use cases other than this, but I think we've become conditioned to think of NFTs as JPEGs, and that's absolutely not the case. All they are is a single distinct time-stamped proof that can carry certain metadata, and you can use that metadata and the time-stamping for many, many purposes. I see it as providing not just an opportunity within DeFi, for example, the liquidity position NFTs that you get, for example, if you send liquidity to something like Uniswap, but also just in our daily lives, membership of loyalty schemes and so on. I think that we'll see NFTs used more and more as some kind of universal proof for different things that we do in our daily lives, as well as engaging with the financial system.
Yeah, so like maybe we can say like a cyclical nature of the markets. In the book you're writing about, for example, Izabela Kamińska. Sees the DeFi slump as an inevitable consequence of the cyclical nature of the markets. So in recent months, we have seen how resilient people are on the markets. Can we say that this is just cyclical nature of the market?
Yes, I think this is an interesting thing because certainly in many countries with sophisticated financial systems, the government will do everything it can to protect citizens from the natural ups and downs of markets, because obviously everybody is happy while markets are going up. But when markets go down, people become angry and blame the government. So with many different assets, we have governments stepping in to moderate the movements of the market. Whereas with crypto, we see market movements that go up and down, and people can make a lot of money or lose a lot of money. And it's, of course, important to point out that within crypto and DeFi, there are unfortunately many people who would scam or steal or whatever. And this is maybe something to be aware of. But in terms of natural market movements, people can win or lose a lot. And of course, with crypto and DeFi, you don't have the government stepping in to moderate these movements. But yes, market movements are entirely natural. It's possible as the market matures that we may see less volatility, but in my opinion, market forces mean that markets unfortunately fall as well as rise, and anyone who participates in this sector needs to understand this.
So we can say maybe a potent place at a potent time. You recall the words of Ryoshi from Shiba Inu. So many newcomers are lured by the rapid growth in crypto, especially in the meme coin category. And the question is, like we're saying now, the markets, maybe the next bull run, it's 24, 25, yeah, like Bitcoin doing it.
Well, it's very, very difficult to predict bull markets, isn't it? But on the subject of meme coins, I think it's really interesting. I mean, there was a lot of publicity around the small number of people who suddenly made a lot of money on Shiba Inu, for example. And we've also seen a huge rise in the value of Dogecoin over the last 10 years. But for me, the most important memes within crypto are those that emerge around tokens and ecosystems that have genuine utility. Meming within the crypto ecosystem is obviously something that newcomers find very novel about the culture and so on. So I think pay attention to meme coins, but check their utility at the same time. And also anyone who claims that they know when the next bull market is. I don't think this can be done by technical analysis alone, and a lot of it depends on things like geopolitics, regulation, and so on, as well as market movements. So it's important to bear these things in mind.
Yeah, Shiba went from a meme coin to like ecosystem and building Shibaverse NFT topic. Do you have your meme coin?
That's such a good question. I bought several different around the time of the Shibaverse. I bought a few cheap competitor tokens on different chains just to see what happened, but none of them have really done anything yet.
You said regulation, so DeFi and regulation, risk management, also political matter. This is a challenge for regulators. Can we see a future where decentralized and centralized finance merge seamlessly, work together?
I absolutely see this, and in fact, I've just been involved with preparing a course materials for a course the Centre for Finance, Technology and Enterprise is running with Singapore Management University about digital assets. And within that course, which is aimed at people within institutions and banking, there are many people talking about the integration of legacy finance and DeFi. And in fact, the emergence of these centralized stablecoins is a really interesting development in this direction. And you look at banks developing their own tokens or joint tokens for cross-border payments and so on. We can see that as the first emergence of integration with decentralized systems by these banks.
So let's look at the problem of our savings in banks, inflation and the possibilities of DeFi, rising prices of basic commodities, inflationary pressures make it impossible for people to earn significant income. DeFi to the rescue?
I think so, yes, as part of a sensibly balanced strategy. What I think it's always very important to research and think about what we do. Like, there were some terrible stories that came out of the lunar collapse, people who had lost their entire fortunes. And people who really could not afford to lose money, or maybe who had borrowed money to participate. And we do not want to see those scenes repeated. However, when you look at the opportunities that are offered within legacy finance, and you see very, very, very low savings rates, I think it's important that people should at least take an interest in financial developments that are happening outside the mainstream and inform themselves about other opportunities, while bearing in mind that they are also very risky.
So the development of fintech could be is a problem for banks. Is the lower comments have lower banking relations? Banks lost their customers to fintech, you think?
Again, a very interesting question. What we have to think about is almost like an analogy with decentralized systems. Fintechs are like a layer 2 on top of banks. So I don't really see them being in competition to banks, other than for those particular services that the fintechs offer. However, I think more of a threat to banks than fintechs is the growth of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. I think that if the government effectively, or the central bank administered by a government, takes over much of the payment infrastructure, then this is something that the banks would previously have done. And that is potentially more a threat from a retail point of view. But it just simply means that the banks move out of retail and they focus on their institutional activities. I think fintech is very, very interesting. And you really notice when you move between countries that have a liberal approach to fintech, and you see how easy it is to use apps for payment and so on, compared with countries that have a much more traditional approach. And we mustn't forget, of course, that one of the fintech leaders really has been China in terms of retail payments and people using mobile to mobile payments that were in place many years before Western countries had this.
In the book, we can find some interesting sentences. So I quote now: there is a growing acceptance among governments that decentralized technologies can really offer something useful. Also, knowledge and regulatory problems are being used as an excuse for inaction. So the speed of development DeFi is unstoppable. How to find a consensus? Time development in traditional finance takes a lot of time. So it works to our disadvantage, this system.
Yes, I think anyone who has worked on any software project within a large corporation knows that things take a long time, naturally, because there is more to lose and there are more people involved. So there's that aspect of things. But really, the banks in the past have been prevented from doing innovative work because of having to abide by regulations that maybe they see people outside these institutions not having to abide by. However, I think regulators in all countries are working towards clarity, which will mean that independent developers and institutions are very much on the same page in future.
Yes, so the adoption problem DeFi. Many people don't also understand the current financial system, like you said before. Many don't care about these things. They don't want to understand how banks works, where is their money. With that in mind, it's probably going to take us a few more decades. I hope less. But you write about also cryptocurrencies and activists. There is opinions that cryptocurrencies are a factor in climate change. Your comment on this?
Well, there's an argument that, in fact, the reverse is true, and that while Bitcoin in particular has been singled out for power consumption and so on, there are many people who believe that actually it is a driver towards discovering greener technologies because it provides an economic incentive for innovation in this sector. And that, in fact, crypto mining and validation can provide a way of monetizing captive power that is in places that cannot be easily transported to population centers to be used for other things. But actually, this is also an interesting point, because when people talk about cryptocurrencies and climate change, they do not necessarily compare the impact of the normal activities that we do and the commercial activities of banks. So, for example, every time you make a payment via your bank account, you are paying for huge office blocks in different cities around the world and different people to fly between these population centers and so on. Banking is not an energy-free service. And also just things like Netflix, using ChatGPT, all of these use energy, but somehow people only ever seem to talk about using energy in the context of cryptos. It's very interesting.
Risk in DeFi, example SushiSwap, Uniswap, that shows the gap between the centralized and decentralized worlds, like exit liquidity, moving funds. So is risk in this game every day?
It is risky because I think we are very much conditioned to hand over the risk to somebody else and to rely on their insurance to cover it. Whereas with DeFi, we can look at hacks, for example, and say that they are one risk, but then there is another risk that is simply the risk of using one's own wallet to transfer funds to somebody else's wallet where one can make a mistake. And within the banking system, you can get compensated. Within DeFi, you take full responsibility yourself. So I think re-educating ourselves about personal responsibility and risk is one of the most important things for people wishing to use the DeFi system. Like we often hear of people sending crypto to the wrong address or so on. And to my mind, that is as big a risk when you're interfacing with the DeFi system as the risk of a hack, for example.
So do you have a warning maybe against a repeat of block FI and Celsius? Decentralized lending protocols is a better solution? How are we compound in DeFi?
Yes. Yes, exactly. This is the point. BlockFi and Celsius surrounded themselves with marketing and narrative that they were part of the DeFi ecosystem, whereas in fact they were not. They're centralized companies. So if you look at truly decentralized projects like Aave, like Compound or whatever, please don't take this as a personal recommendation, because it's entirely possible that there was already a compound hack. There might be another compound hack, whatever. Projects can get hacked. But at least if you use decentralized projects where you can look at the smart contracts yourself, admittedly, most people probably won't look at the smart contracts yourself. But a centralized company pretending to be a decentralized project is the worst of all worlds, because you are centralizing the risk into a person or entity that you have to trust, while at the same time investing in something that is completely outside the regulatory system. So it's the worst of both worlds. At least if you have a centralized project like a bank, it comes under the regulated structure. If you're using Uniswap, you're using something that is decentralized and you take your risk, but you can be educated about that risk. With something that is very opaque, not very transparent, like a centralized project that pretends to be centralized, you have neither advantage.
What do you think about Meta that wants to decentralize website Meta, but we know who is behind it? Are those sentences wrong? Like circus decentralize? I guess the point of validators is important here also. So we can call this like insufficient decentralization.
Yes, I think my last point really applies to all projects like this. We call that decentralization theatre. So in reality, many projects have a degree of centralization because it is two or three people making the decisions. If if you're serious about involving yourself in a project and there is a DAO, for example, I would really encourage people to involve themselves in the DAO and understand very much about the governance of the project, rather than just trusting that people within the project will do the right thing. It's all about doing your own research at the end of the day.
So, subject of DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, governance model, tokenomics, design, voting, and consequences. Also, drastic cases such build finance, resulting not from an exploit error but from a management model. It's subject wide for DeFi too.
Precisely, and I touch on that in the book, because as I said in answer to an earlier question, we are still very early with the research and the technology, and it is entirely possible that even if a contract does not have a software bug, it might have a bug in its design that perhaps allows individuals to take control of the funds, like with BuildDAO, in a way that was not intended.
Mm-hmm. And front running, the world of regular finance and crypto. Regulators forbid it, and offenders are severely punished. Do you think that this matter in crypto may change after the regulations?
I think that's an interesting topic, because of course, because the transactions on a public blockchain are public, it's almost as if front running is part of the design, the way it is at the moment. So we have people talking a lot about MEV, minor extractable value. And we look at all the projects that are set up to either monetize MEV or to conceal transactions and so on. And it's a topic that I think regulation will have to adapt to take account of, because within a centralized system, front running is something that is done with deception and behind the scenes, whereas in crypto, front running is done by people with access to the best technology, because all the information is already out there in public. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the regulations adapt to this, because front running on a public blockchain means something entirely different to front running in a traditional market.
Bridges in crypto was a hot subject last bull run. A lot of hacks, a lot of lessons, experience. In 2021, DeFi investors lost over $10 billion from scams. We remember the Wormhole bridge and Axie Infinity. This seems to be still a challenge in crypto, bridges.
Yeah, bridges are really complex. It's because you have to trust the integrity of the chain data, but because the chain data works differently in both places, and to get this interoperability is really, really difficult. And it's no coincidence that bridges like Wormhole and whatever have attracted the majority of DeFi hacks. Bridges are just very, very difficult to get right by design, and also there's not that much money in developing this kind of infrastructure. That's the interesting thing. So in order to attract and retain the best developers, maybe we need to think more about the monetization model that draws developers into this space. But I think bridges will continue to be very, very difficult, and they probably will continue to be hacked, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. You wrote the gene is out of the bottle. So do you think that the story of DeFi will develop the fastest in the most favorable countries for crypto regulations like Australia, Switzerland, Gibraltar? And what do you think about Zone Europe?
Okay, well, this is very interesting because the European Union approach is significantly different to everywhere in the world, with the MiCA regulations and the sandbox situation. The regulators are seeking to unify what has now been a real mix of different countries with different rules, and bring them all into line under one umbrella. But it's very, very difficult to stop people engaging with crypto systems via VPNs, for example, if somebody is determined to do so. So I find this really interesting. When I say the genie's out of the bottle, it's like a lot of other technologies, that if they exist somewhere in the world, people are going to use them by whatever means necessary. And I think it's very interesting that literally in the last 24, 48 hours, Hong Kong, for example, has told its banks not to refuse accounts to crypto business customers because they are interested in proving themselves as a center for crypto. And you also see a lot of money flowing into jurisdictions that are crypto friendly and allow the technology. So yes, I do think the genie's out of the bottle. And also, to return to one of our first questions, I think it's a generational thing. And as there are more and more younger people moving into positions of authority to whom using crypto seems quite normal, we will see some kind of change eventually.
Mm-hmm. Opportunity to gamify or playing to earn childhood memories. I remember that Elon Musk, by the way, published the picture with t-shirt, and then we can read childhood memories. I saw this sentence, and this was in your book, childhood memory. But some are looking for the new narratives, what to invest in the next trend. Maybe we should look for a centralized infrastructure where we can connect to the server, moving to a decentralized infrastructure. And I mean that maybe like a platform Elon's X platform. And my thing is about 100's dream, like decentralized social media. Do you have your opinion about this platform, where it's supposed to concentrate potential communication services of content, video, image, and connect with crypto there?
Yes, absolutely. I think whatever the future holds in terms of decentralized social platforms or decentralized gaming, and what we call gaming can be thought of as well as not purely playing games, but also just our presence in virtual social worlds. These worlds need to be interoperable. So, Elon Musk might talk about Project X or whatever, but I think in reality he will have Project X, and different companies will have their own projects, and different individual developers will set up their own decentralized platforms, and ultimately all these will need to be interoperable, because we don't want a world where everybody is, for example, captured in Facebook's metaverse. That would be the worst kind of future we can imagine.
Mm-hmm. I remember personally the cases of his tweets of Shiba Inu, the last bull run, and the last year we can see about 100's dream, a lot of cases. But metaverse with the Defi, will it become normal in 10 years, you think?
Yes, I think it really will. Although it's very difficult to imagine exactly what it will look like. And I suspect that a lot of people's predictions now are not what will necessarily happen. But I do think that the technology is evolving very, very quickly. And while AI probably has taken as this year's hype or this year's buzzword, there are lots of people quietly developing what we can think of as these extended reality platforms. And then all of a sudden there will be some big advance and everybody will be talking and writing about this. But I do think we need that interoperability. And to my mind, public blockchains and in-world or in-game assets that can be represented by NFTs are a really good approach for enabling this interoperability between different metaverse platforms.
Subject of how to find a good DeFi project. What portal or profile would you recommend for DeFi tracking and analyzing DeFi, like LAM number one? And what components do you take into account when you analyzing, like TVL, vesting, no token, amount of funds? Your advice?
Okay, so I will preface this with saying that I'm not a skilled trader at all. So I won't give financial advice or advice on strategies simply because there are many people who are more educated than me in this area, much more experienced and so on. However, I am very interested in looking at analytics. And as you say, DeFi Llama is undoubtedly the best platform out there for pure DeFi. Also, Nansen is very good. And obviously, news and data aggregators like Masari, which is mainly a paid service, obviously. But DeFi Llama, tends to be the go-to.
So maybe it's some projects now. What you're looking for?
Okay, I'm not actually working for specific projects, and also I don't want to shill, so I won't have recommendations of what DeFi projects to look at. But I think anything that I can name areas that I think are really interesting, and shielded projects working on shielded transactions and zero knowledge proofs are really, really interesting. A project which I had some contact with in the past, I don't do any work for them now, but I think is interesting, is Panther Protocol. I think their approach to shielded transactions that are client as well as being shielded is really, really interesting. So I'd say zero knowledge proofs are quite a good sector to look at. But as far as mentioning platforms and infrastructure to interact with, I would tend to stick to the major and best known and best proven platforms like Uniswap, for example.
Mm-hmm. Privately, how were your last 2 years in the bear market? Probably nothing new for you with so many years of experience.
Well, as I say, I'm not really a trader. I'm more of an interested observer. I was really saddened to hear the bad experiences of people during the bear market, and very angry with some of the bad actors and some of the influencers who encouraged people to be scammed in this way. But as with the last bear market, bear markets are traditionally times when the projects that will survive spend their time building and have their heads down quietly working on things that will be interesting in the future. So I think it's part of an inevitable cycle. And I'm hoping that there are many interesting projects that are laying foundations for the future as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an opinion on a potential bank crash? You remember the Northern Rock crisis, knowing what may come next?
Well, again, I think that's a brilliant question. And, not only being British, do I remember the Northern Rock crisis very well, but of course it is referred to directly in the Genesis block of Bitcoin. And it was a very pivotal moment in terms of people's perceptions of the security of the banking system. In recent months, we've also seen some banks, particularly in America, running into trouble. There are lots of rumors about large banks, which I won't mention here. I think the possibility in a world that is so interconnected and where bank runs can start in a fraction of a second, the possibility of a bank run is always there, and sensible people should read up about these risks and diversify their assets accordingly.
I think we can read some community questions. I will ask you about, if you find time, 2 or 3 more about the book also. So those questions, maybe it's getting something repeat, but community. I think these questions will be about everything and nothing. You said before, but maybe something more. Do you know about building ecosystem, COW and QUOM? The last token, QUOM, Shiba Predator, maybe the last one. You can say something, or like Layer 1, Decentralized?
Well, all I would say is you probably know more about it than I do. As I said earlier, I was approached by a mystery account on Twitter a year ago via direct message, who told me a little bit about the ecosystem. But your community undoubtedly knows a lot more about it than me. I'm following with interest because it does seem to be a genuinely decentralized project, but it's one that I know very little about.
Next question. Is she responsible for creating a crypto project herself, since she writes books strictly related to the crypto and DeFi industry?
Not really, no. As I say, I built a portfolio tracker years ago, and I have worked with a number of projects as an advisor, but I have not built my own project. I prefer to work in the sector of awareness and education, rather than putting all my energy into a project that, might be high risk.
Next question will be the same about childhood, and so I think maybe about contract. You can say something about contract childhood ends on Ethereum. You looking for it or no?
I had a quick look at the contract, and I'm interested to, I had a look at the contract. I had a look at the Twitter account. I really am quite fascinated by it, so I will be looking into it more deeply, as I would like to know more about the project and its whole narrative. But I think I probably know less about it. I'm sorry to disappoint people in the community who may be listening, but you all probably know a lot more about it than I do.
Maybe you will join to Telegram Childhood Ends group, or you are there.
Yes. I mean, do please add me to the Telegram. Be interested to keep an eye on what's happening there.
Nice. So does next question. Does she have contact with Ryoshi? Yeah, you said before about this, yes. Maybe if not Ryoshi, maybe Satoshi.
No, I don't have. I am a small player in a very, very large ecosystem, and the first I knew of Ryoshi was when the person whose Twitter account does not exist anymore contacted me a year ago. So I don't know who Ryoshi is, and I have never met them, or I don't have any knowledge of them.
Next interesting question. What does the crypto world needs most right now in terms of usability and revolution in cryptocurrency?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think usability is really important, but unfortunately, one of the problems that we saw before, for example, with Celsius and BlockFi, is that they give a very Web 2 interface, which is very professional, that people are used to interacting with, but that actually hides the mechanics of what's going on underneath. So while I think that it's important to have more usable interfaces, that cannot be in the interests of security. Also, I think use cases are really important. If the metaverse does develop as some interoperable platform and people need assets that are transferred over public blockchains, that becomes a huge use case that perhaps cannot be achieved in some other way. What I also think the crypto world needs is to lose its bad reputation for scams. And I would like to see a situation where people celebrate the technology rather than talk about scams that have happened. And maybe in the future, the technology will evolve to the point where there are fewer people, where there are fewer hacks happening, fewer opportunities for bad actors.
Next question may be funny. Why is she posting stars?
That is really funny. There's no significance to this at all. If you look at my Twitter account, I generally use quite a few different emojis, and I quite often use the sparkles emoji. So it has no significance at all. I'm sorry.
Because it's of a childhood end, of course, and the stars. Why is she significant? Yeah.
I don't really see myself as a significant person. All I do is try to explain what's happening in the crypto ecosystem. There are many more people who are better developers than me, better writers than me, but obviously I've been involved in crypto for 10 years now, so perhaps I have some perspective looking back over the last 10 years, but I certainly would say that since I became involved in crypto, I have met people whose capabilities have made me feel so humbled that I really don't see myself as a significant person in the space.
I think that the book was published in the Twitter account because of that you wrote on the book, like possibilities in DeFi system, and maybe this ecosystem will present in the future, and it's very important. Next question: will there be a revolution, breakthrough in DeFi? A big revolution in DeFi?
Yeah, what I think we'll see is not so much one big breakthrough, but lots of small breakthroughs. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I do think that regulation is a big part of this because it can slow down or speed up development in different countries or affect different projects and so on. I think one of the breakthroughs will be getting regulators to accept that they can work with people within the ecosystem rather than working against them. And one of these areas, I think I alluded to it before, shielded transactions, where it's possible to provide time-stamped proof of transactions, maybe to regulators or tax authorities, to keep them happy, while at the same time shielding them from the view of others. I think that's going to be a significant breakthrough. So if I was investing in the space, that's one of the areas that I would definitely be looking at. But having regulators with a creative and open approach to understanding the technology, I think, will help these breakthroughs.
Which chain do you think will be the king of DeFi?
This is such a difficult question, because in some ways I've always been a little bit of a Bitcoin maxi. And of course, when we think of DeFi, we don't really think of Bitcoin. I think Ethereum and its side chains and related projects and layer twos for now, but there are all kinds of layer ones being developed, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ethereum's problems mean that some chain overtakes it in the future. But for here and now, it's very difficult to overlook Ethereum. I'll talk about Polygon, which of course is part of the Ethereum ecosystem anyway, but you do see Polygon gaining a certain amount of traction. And along with other components of the Ethereum ecosystem, Optimism is a project that I'm quite interested in. But as far as layer ones go, very difficult to see outside Ethereum at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And then the last question, I think, because the rest of it's similar. So I think this 2 days ago. But did you hear about Zen project, Jack Levin project, to mint free crypto? Jack Levin is the first Google backend architect. Did you hear about it or no?
I saw a little about it, but I haven't had a chance to look at it properly yet, so I can't really comment on it. But yeah, I think the important takeaway from that is that there are all kinds of very high capability people working in the sector, and it's very interesting to see people leaving large companies to launch these projects, and it's certainly one that's on my list to look into in future.
Mm-hmm. But what do you think about those questions you got from community? It was funny or mysterious or important?
I think they're great questions. And the community is obviously a very knowledgeable and I enjoyed the fact that people were asking questions.
But you are so many years in crypto. So many years. So, do you believe in cases like Clue that it's maybe connected dots from everywhere space?
Connecting the dots in the space is something that I'm really interested in, and if you look at the myths and legends surrounding Satoshi, I'm always drawn to projects where there's a bit of a mystery and a bit of a story, and where you can look back over the years and try to join the dots and think about what people's motivations might have been. But yes, 10 years in the space is a lot of time, a lot of time to spend thinking about this stuff.
A question from book, then I would ask you about a fork and your opinion on fork, like before Ethereum Classic history and example last Ethereum proof of work and usability for Ethereum proof of work then, and can a new fork network actually bring something better?
Well,
is this sense or?
Yes, I think that's one of the things that drew me to the sector, is the knowledge that because it's open source and because it's decentralized, that that if somebody wants to fork a protocol, then it is purely the ideas in their code and the purpose of the fork that drives the consensus towards whether that fork becomes a large project or not. And it's important to remember that there are many people who actually see Ethereum Classic as the true Ethereum. And Ethereum ETH, as we see it today, a lot of people still don't think of as being a legitimate, the legitimate Ethereum that was originally conceptualized. Similar with the ETH POW fork. A lot of people, well, not a lot of people, there are some people who believe that Ethereum's move to proof of stake was not optimal, and it's the power of consensus that these forks can continue to coexist and people can support them or not support them as they choose.
Mm-hmm. And then I will ask about the Pulse chain. You heard of this or no, like Richard Heart projects, like Hex project, and now will become a pulse chain network also. I don't know its sense or.
Again, it's a project about which I know very little. I try to keep track of all the different projects, and I've heard of it, but it's not one that I know enough about to comment on.
Example of a GameStop. Maybe the new bull market, we will get the new speculation on something. This was the power of community, I think, the GameStop example last time.
Yes, I wrote about GameStop in the book because while I think it's dangerous to focus all conversation around crypto and DeFi on speculation and speculative use cases, because I do think there are real use cases. GameStop was really interesting because institutions seem to be taken by surprise by the power of community. But then you have to issue warnings as well, because obviously we've just seen the collapse of Bed Bath and Beyond, which was another target of the the activist trader community. So just because you have the power of community behind you doesn't always mean you'll succeed. But I certainly think that social media, along with new technologies, is bringing an entirely different perspective to markets and to trading, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my last question, not financial advice, one more time, we will know your portfolio maybe for the bull market, or...
Okay, so like I've said before, I'm not really a trader, and I would probably not name check individual projects. However, I would say if you have a crypto portfolio, you would definitely need to have Bitcoin in there. Just because it has unique properties that tokens that have come since don't. In general terms, as I said, I would definitely be looking at projects involving roll-up technologies and zero-knowledge proofs. Those, I think, are going to be the main areas where development is concentrated. But it's very difficult because sometimes the most useful projects don't necessarily have the highest price appreciation, and people trade for different reasons. Like, for example, people who bought Shiba Inu did many at the right time and sold at the right time, did many times better, say, for example, than people who held Uniswap's governance token or Compound's governance token. However, you would say that Uniswap and Compound have a lot more utility than Shiba Inu. So I think it's important to distinguish between trading where you where you're a proper degen and you want to make a large amount of money in a short time, as opposed to maybe holding some tokens and seeing what happens to them over the longer period because you believe in the technologies. And I think that's an important distinction to make.
Shiba Inu and his stablecoin Shi, and like his vision, maybe stablecoin Shi, you will write the next book. This is Ryoshi vision on community of Shiba, and now I think
yes. I think there are lots of things that didn't make it into this book that I hope will make it into the next book.
So Rhian, thank you very much. Maybe do you have any question that I should ask you more, or it's enough? It was very good.
Before we end, let me just ask you one question because I'm curious. How did you get involved in crypto?
It was occasion, I think. Occasion of crash COVID. And I was on holiday and I was getting a call from my friend and he said, "Hey, my friend, buy Bitcoin. It's opportunity now." And it was crash. This time, so then I was more involved in crypto. Since then, I follow crypto every day, so I'm very grateful for this, and it's very good opportunity to change our life, I think, because we are still early.
I completely agree with that, and it's been a great experience being on your podcast, and thank you very much for asking me along. It's great to meet you and great to have questions from other people in the community as well.
Thank you, and I hope we will hear you maybe soon in the future if we get something important.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rhian.